Hey y'all, welcome back to Gadfly, the podcast about third parties, fringe candidates, and just generally weird American electoral history. I'm Dusty Wilson.
I'm Una O'Leary.
And this week, I had plans for this week. I was so ready to begin our preview 2022 episodes today, but the episode I was working on, I had to cancel this last week.
No.
Yeah,
what happened?
For beautifully great news. You see, there has been speculation since the 2020 election that between now and 2024, one, if not more, of the Trump children were going to run for office. Initially, people were speculating that Ivanka was going to run for Senate against Marco Rubio. That fell through. There was speculation that Don Jr. was going to run for Senate in Pennsylvania. That also fell through. There was a theory that he might run for mayor of New York, but that's just a level of losing that I don't think anyone in that family could just deal with at all. But the one person that looked like they were actually going to run would be Eric's wife, Laura Trump.
Right.
She is going to be running for Senate in North Carolina. The last poll that was conducted there actually had her as the front runner. And
I'm still waiting to hear what the good news is.
This last week, she said she's not running.
Hey, that's great news.
It's wonderful news. I don't know why. And I don't know, I'm trying to figure out the family dynamics behind that because not counting Ivanka, Laura Trump is clearly Trump's favorite kid. It's just she's the one who always gets the prime speaking gigs during his various tours and shows and rallies. Yeah. She ran the Facebook news thing that they had until they got booted for, being themselves. And she's kind of been the mouthpiece for the family. So it was really weird to see this person who was a front runner suddenly get pushed aside. My only guess is that since the Democratic Party has gotten stronger and stronger in North Carolina, as more folks move to the Triangle area, like Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, I think, as more people are moving there for tech jobs, it's been getting more and more liberal. And my best guess is they just didn't want a Trump to lose between 2020 and 2024.
Oh, see, I feel like you're giving them a lot of logical credit that they do not deserve at all. My gut would say is the family as a whole realized that it would take effort and
yeah.
The other thing to realize is I'm sure whoever they had on staff for the 2020 campaign for Donald Trump has not gotten paid for 2020 campaign.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. Yeah.
So anyone with enough brain cells to at least understand that the grift train is coming, choo choo, let's all hop on it. I'm not talking real die in the wool believers, but even then it's at a certain point you still have to pay rent.
Yeah.
And so probably the people who are left over are the people who even the Trump family are oh God, we don't want to hire them. They're they're too dumb.
Yeah. To use a North Carolina chain, the Piggly Wiggly doesn't take ideology for bread.
No, they don't. They don't.
I've tried. And they're put that Bubba Cola back on the shelf, sir.
No cheer wine for you.
Oh, that's so sad. I want it. So we're going to be the premiere episode of that's getting pushed back probably about a month. I've been going through all the current campaigns that are going on. I've already found two that are very interesting. Just as a preview, the Idaho gubernatorial race as of right now is looking very fun, and by that I mean just a bucket of chaos. And the Missouri Senate race as of right now, the current frontrunner is a fellow by the name of Eric Greitens, who was last in the news for rape, I believe. He raped his mistress and then took pictures of her and used it as blackmail.
He's still around. He's still trying to go because I think he ran in the last race and they were no, sit your ass down.
Yeah. And now he's running for Senate and he has at least 34% support.
Oh my, that's 34 percentage points too many.
It's not great. So we're probably going to be looking into both of those. I'm sure there's even more that I'm going to end up discovering during that time, but the Idaho one's probably the one I'm the most excited about right now. Idaho politics are so goddamn weird.
Oh, and they're only going to get weirder now that the Sun Valley is basically 90217 area code. It's basically LA.
Oh God. Yeah. Oh my God.
Everyone from Hollywood is just Idaho, the taxes are lower and I'll just fly back in for meetings.
It's cool. Demi Moore lives there. It's fine.
Yeah, the skiing's great.
Oh God. It seems so weird.
To the point that you actually your heart goes out a little bit to the native Idahoans.
Oh my God. To a degree. We'll talk about that. We'll get to it. But yeah. So that's something to look forward to. Until then, though, I've got us a multi-part story of just pure chaos and corruption.
God, just another Monday in the office.
I know, right? Because look, Chicago has. I'm not going to say our politicians are the most wholesome of folks. We
that would be lying.
Yeah, that would be a huge lie. We have a long history of corruption in jail. That's typically what everyone's follow-up act is when you're governor.
I would at least say hey, yeah, we're corrupt, but at least our politicians actually serve time.
True. Very true.
Illinois, we follow through.
Yeah. We might not make the best of decisions, but at least the district attorneys and attorney general are good.
We're Midwestern and we apologize. It's federal penitentiary time.
So that being said, as I was doing research for this episode, I started to wonder, like, why doesn't New York City get more shit for this? Because there was a period of time in the 2000s where, at least from my numbers, about 1/6 of the members of the New York Senate at one time eventually faced jail time and or were federally indicted.
What?
Yeah, and we're going to be telling a story of one of those people who would eventually become very federally indicted.
I'm shocked to find that federal indictments are going on here.
Oh my God. And that's the thing, is like, it's still not the most brazen thing that this person is going to do. We're going to be talking about a dude by the name of Pedro Espada Jr. So Pedro Espada Jr. was born in 1953 in Coamo, Puerto Rico. So Pedro was the oldest of 6 siblings, and his father was fighting in the army in the Korean War when Pedro was born. Now, eventually, when his father came back, his family would move to New York City, and they would end up settling in the Mott Haven neighborhood of the Bronx. So this is going to be a full-on Bronx tale.
Oh, I love it.
You know, a neighborhood we both get and understand.
Listen, I got a lot of love for the Bronx. Also, I have some family who, I think there's a huge Irish contingency in like High Church or High Church.
Yeah.
Along there. Yeah. And then everyone moved to Yonkers. Anyway, side note.
Excellent. Yeah. So this is going to be a wonderful story of the Bronx. And it's also, I think, in the grand scheme of things, especially looking at who the Bronx has now as their representatives, it is a wonderful redemption arc of just being stuck with the worst fucking humans for decades. And then suddenly everyone in the Bronx being like, hey, that old saying of only, you know, assholes run for office, maybe that's because good people are told that and it makes them think they're not supposed to run for office. So maybe good people should run for office.
Ooh, I feel like this will amount to an excellent lesson for us all.
I mean, one can hope. Yeah, so Pedro, born in Puerto Rico, moves with his family in 1958 at the age of 5. Now, one of the big issues that faced the family immediately is that when his father was living in Puerto Rico, he was college educated. He was set up for really any kind of job he could want. There just wasn't a lot of financial support, and it was very difficult to make a living. And so moving to New York City, it felt like the family might have more opportunity. The problem that his father ran into when he got up to New York City is that he really didn't speak English very well. And, you know, you're moving from Puerto Rico to the racist mainland. So it's going to make it really hard to find a job, no matter what your college degree is, if you're not fluent in the language that white people want you to be fluent in.
Yeah, the book is definitely being judged by the cover.
Oh, 100%. So instead of being able to find a well-paying job like he expected, he ended up having to take a job as a short-order cook. And the money wasn't nearly enough to afford a family of 6, so they also had to rely on public assistance to be able to fill the gap on food and basic necessities. And this led his father into an extremely deep depression, which then led into extreme alcoholism. Yeah, it's not a great sort of thing. So according to Pedro Jr., this would lead to heavy drinking. And when Pedro turned 13, at this point, he considered himself the de facto head of the family, mainly because his dad was just too drunk to do anything else. It's also around this time that Pedro took up boxing, learning the basics from light heavyweight champ Jose Torres. And so at one point, Pedro was like getting really into boxing. In his mind, he was going to be the next big boxer out of the neighborhood. And he went to Jose and he was like, hey, I want to make a career out of this. Do you have any advice? And Jose Torres looked him in the eye and he said, yeah, stay in school. Yeah, when you read that now, it's just like, yeah, kids, stay in school, follow your dreams, don't do drugs. But in the 60s, no, it's just like, you should not do this. You will die.
Better plan. Don't ever box.
Look, man, the mob always needs people willing to lose for money, but you at least first have to look like you can win. But Pedro also noted that he learned another lesson from boxing: how to take and dish out punishment.
Oh boy.
You know, a good lesson. Not like to be patient, wait for your chance, not to, or like, you know, you got to bob and weave and, you know.
Yeah, know when to pick your battles.
Exactly. It doesn't matter how big you are as long as you know what you're doing. Nope, I can hurt people, and if you hurt me, I'll fucking take it.
Yeah. If you hurt me, I will take that punch, but I'm going to hit you back so hard.
Yeah, this is something you want to teach a teenager very, very strongly. Just ingrain it in their already fucked up DNA.
Yeah, this is boxing, or also possibly having to assume adult responsibilities at a too young age.
Speaking of which, so I couldn't find anything to back this up. This is something that Pedro states. The timeline doesn't quite seem to mesh, and there's not really any explanation for how it happened. But he claims that at the age of 16, he would end up being homeless. I'm not, like I said, I'm not entirely sure how that happened because I'm not entirely sure if he left the house because he didn't want to be around his father, or if his family was no longer able to afford housing, so all of them were technically homeless. It's really vague. It's kind of just thrown out in this, I believe it was a New Yorker article, where he just mentions it and that's it. So I figure it's at least bringing up, if it's true, that really does, it speaks a lot to his character that he can be the head of the family while also being homeless and all of that. But also considering that the very next year, at the age of 17, he ended up getting into Syracuse University.
We got a young college student.
Always a great sign. Always a real good sign.
Those of you playing at home with our bingo.
Yep. Graduate when you're 18. Stay in college the full 4 years.
Please, yes.
Take a gap year if you have to. So he gets into Syracuse, but he'd only stay there for about a year because he ended up getting severely homesick. And this is mainly because he was missing his high school girlfriend by the name of Connie. And in fact, he missed her so much that he transferred to Fordham University in New York City and immediately got married to her at the age of 17.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's too young.
So I think this is a good thing to bring up because this is probably a shoe that people are just waiting to drop, especially when you bring up corrupt politicians. Pedro is still married to Connie. They stuck it out. They made it.
Oh, wow.
They made it work. So that's not a twist you're going to have to expect and all that. That'll come from other people, but not from Pedro.
All right. Well, good on you, Pedro and Connie.
Yeah.
Mazel tov.
So in 1975, Pedro graduated from Fordham University with a bachelor in the arts, just kind of a generic degree. And initially after graduating, Pedro hopped jobs, as we all do. Initially, he worked as a school teacher in the New York public school system. He took a few grad level social work classes at Hunter College. But in 1978, he would find his first true calling. He became a much needed community organizer. And he began his work in an apartment complex by the name of Stevenson Commons. Now, the Stevenson Commons were built by the city in 1974 and offered an immediate home to about 1,000 families. But not only that, the city had promised that adjacent to the new housing, there was going to be a city-run hospital that was desperately needed in the Soundview neighborhood of the Bronx. However, by 1978, the city had gone halfway on that promise. The housing had been built, but they had completely run out of any money to staff, supply, or even operate this hypothetical hospital. So while the housing was there was essentially just an empty building where a hospital should be that just sat there. So that year, Pedro would create the Comprehensive Community Development Corporation, which was a group that had the sole goal of turning that empty space into a fully functioning hospital, whether the city ran it or they did. And initially, the CCDC would lease the empty building from the city, just to make sure that no one else could buy it out from under them, with the goal of obtaining federal funds to open the hospital under their ownership if that's what had to happen. And his first move was to recruit a doctor by the name of Neil Kalman. Now, at the time, Kalman would have been around 28 years old, give or take, and he'd begun his career in family medicine after interning at the Montefiore Medical Center. Neil has stated that much of his life has been inspired by his grandfather, Maurice Kalman, who was one of the few socialists on the New York City City Council at the time, and he placed his grandfather on a very high pedestal and devoted his whole life to social issues and class struggle, especially within the medical industry. Yeah, Neil Kalman is a fucking hero. This is like one of the few great heroes I think that we talk about in this. The dude is one of the most respected doctors in New York City. He's just a grand individual. So when Pedro approached him with the idea of opening a hospital in the Soundview neighborhood of the Bronx, Neil was immediately on board. Quote, this is a quote from Neil. The idea was to recruit family physicians who were oriented towards working in the community rather than having patients go to impersonal emergency rooms at big hospitals. So it's very much this community-based center of care that nowadays is a lot more looked upon a lot more favorably, but in the 60s and 70s was a lot more of a radical sort of view. And it would take about 3 years, but they would eventually secure a federal grant of $270,000. By October of 1981, the Soundview Health Center began to accept patients. And as a hospital, the place had the works. There were 120 rooms on 2 floors, and medical professionals focusing in, quote, psychiatry, radiology, ophthalmology, optometry, pediatrics, obstetrics, and dentistry. Before long, the hospital was getting about 20,000 patients a year, and even begun to expand to other locations and other service deserts within the 5 boroughs. The Comprehensive Community Development Corporation ran the hospitals, and also started to expand to offering other social services, such as SNAP, WIC, and daycare. However, the New York Times would note that there was kind of one really weird thing about the Soundview hospitals. It's mainly that pretty much everywhere you looked, there would be some picture of Pedro hanging up. He'd either be in a wing surrounded by kids, or there'd be like a picture of him, just like a headshot.
You're not Jesus? This isn't St. Mary's Bon Secours?
And the New York Times was like, hey, Pedro, what's up with this? To which he said, quote, the community has to know you so that in the end, they trust you. The thing is, Neil Kalman has a bit of a different opinion on why this was done. He stated, quote, Pedro's vision was always bigger than healthcare, and he had his eye on politics from the beginning. And by 1984, Neil would completely quit the Soundview Hospital and found his own healthcare organization, the Institute for Family Health. So 1984 would also be another big year because now Pedro's kind of running the community corp all by himself. He's kind of making these huge decisions. The hospital's doing great. He's expanding to other things. Their first daycare is going great. And then a daycare scandal would strike. So the Praca Daycare was operated by a group called the Puerto Rican Association for Community Advancement. And they had established a number of daycares across the city, but there was one major one in particular in the Bronx that they ran it for a number of years. And it was also in an area where there just were not any free or low-cost daycares for people to be able to use. So it was extraordinarily influential within the community. However, in 1984, a mother would come to the city and state that her daughter had been sexually assaulted by the staff. 3 employees would be arrested, and a total of 115 charges of sexual assault would be levied against them.
Oh, God.
But before you start to feel bad, I do have good news. It didn't happen.
Okay.
You see, this is all taking place during somewhat adjacent to the Satanic Panic scare. There was kind of the sister thing that walked hand in hand with it was the daycare sex assault panic.
God, why were the 80s so fucked up?
I don't get it either. I don't know.
Like, I can't blame it all on coke.
No, this was not coke. This was coming from communities where cocaine was rare and expensive.
Like, if anything, yeah, I don't know. I think of like so much of the freaking out seems to have originated from the suburbs. Like, maybe you should have had a coke problem. Maybe you should have had like, a little nightlife, something to take the edge off. I don't know.
Let's see if you can speed run dinner. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So
God.
It's nuts. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the both Satanic Panic and the daycare panic that was going on at the time, a lot of it comes from the McMartin trial, or the McMartin preschool out of Manhattan Beach, California. Are you familiar with this, Una?
I am not. In fact, I'm not quite well versed with like the daycare. I knew of the Satanic Panic, but the daycare panic less so.
So the McMartin preschool was, like I said, it was in suburban Los Angeles. It was run by Virginia McMartin and her grandson Ray Buckley. So essentially, there was a parent who believed that her son was being abused because he was having painful bowel movements, and they brought in a number of people to start to question the students to see if anything might have been going on. And so they brought in this group called the Children's Institute International, and specifically a woman by the name of Key McFarland. Now, Key McFarland is the whole reason that we had the anatomy doll, the whole like tell us on the doll where they touched you. That was her thing.
Oh no.
The big problem though in Key's questioning is that she often encouraged children that she was questioning to speculate about things that might have happened and ask leading questions to kind of lead the children to believe that there was a correct answer to what she was asking. And the only way to get her to stop asking was to answer it in a way that she wanted them to.
Right.
So this resulted in the belief that underneath the McMartin School were a series of tunnels where children were being systematically abused while they were at the center every day.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Students would claim that they were a part of satanic rituals, that there were often orgies at the preschool. There was one student who claimed that children would be flushed down toilets down to these catacombs where they would then be abused and then eventually cleaned up and brought back to their parents. Some said they saw witches on brooms. There was one person who said Chuck Norris was there. It was outrageous. And it was also just the entire country fucking believed it. Just
I saw Goody Proctor in the catacombs flushed down the toilet.
Chuck Norris was there and
Chuck
Roundhouse
Norris
kicked
was there.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous now, but at the time, it was the fucking news. Just because a lot of people probably weren't getting these specific details. All they heard were hundreds of kids have been abused. Yeah, let me see, 360 children, by the estimation of the Los Angeles District Attorney, had been abused. And also part of this was due to a medical examinations that were done by Astrid Hackenstall-Hager, who claimed that she saw multiple instances of microfracturing on all of these children's anuses. Yeah, so not only were these children questioned about things that had not happened, they had essentially been sexually abused for no reason.
To check for the sexual abuse that was definitely going on in the catacombs.
100%. Of these 360 children, only 41 would end up testifying before the grand jury, and oftentimes their testimony would be completely contradictory, but it was also that sort of thing where it's just like, oh, this is a game, there are answers that are correct, and I just have to answer the correct questions, because these are fucking preschoolers. These are fucking children.
Oh, I mean, not even a game, just the sense of just like, this is a person of authority and I need to say the right answer.
100%.
Or mom and dad will be, or this person in front of me will be mad.
Yeah. Well, and it also turned out that the woman who started all of this, claiming that her son was being abused due to bowel discomfort, turns out that she was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia as well.
Oh no.
And so a lot of the theory is that this wasn't so much something that was true, but I mean, we all know that it's not true now, but was probably more born out of an untreated mental illness.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And so the McMartin family would be hounded for the vast majority of the 80s. There would be 2 trials that were held, one in 1984 and one in 1990. All of the counts would be dismissed against Virginia McMartin and Ray Buckley. They would be, there was a hung jury, I believe, the second time. And essentially everyone gave up on trying to obtain any sort of conviction. And it ended up being the most expensive court case in the history of our fucking country.
This is also so heartbreaking in light of all the mass graves that are being covered with those.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The homes and schools for Native children, I think in Canada. But
yeah, in Canada, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And it's, I can't help but compare this to the whole Save Our Children QAnon thing as of right now, where the frustration of, this stuff happens. It legitimately does happen, but creating these sort of mass panics around this stuff of things that are clearly not happening, all it does is distract and discredit this stuff from the future. And, we've all had, I think every childhood has had some form of sex panic that doesn't exist, whether it's, rainbow parties or snap band rumors or...
Oh my God. Yeah.
Just some like creeped out boomer invents out of nowhere and suddenly it's fucking real.
Right. At my high school, the joke, not that it ever made it to like the parents, but I think the joke among the teens was just like the cool kids would go to these sod farms, literally like their farms were sod grass. And then you'd circle up the SUVs because it was the late 90s and everyone had one.
Mm-hmm.
Like turn the flood lamps on and throw on like whatever top 40 mix you made and then just get really drunk and like fool around.
I mean, that just sounds fun. That sounds like a good time.
That's just a Midwestern party. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, also, I imagine half the party would just be like shading your eyes and like trying your best not to get blinded. And so, hopping back to the Procca daycare in 1984. So this is right in the midst of the McMartin preschool trial. And it's at this time a mother goes to the Bronx County District Attorney, a dude by the name of Mario Marola, who is mostly known as just being an asshole. He's like one of those, he's like a crew cut came to life and has just buried all the daddy issues that he's ever had.
No.
It's like if he existed today, he'd either have a show on Fox News or one of his own judge shows in the middle of the day. He'd be one of those guys.
Amazing.
So this woman came to him, claimed that they were, her daughter had been sexually assaulted when she was sleeping at nap time. And Marola brought in a bunch of people using the exact same sort of techniques that Key McFarland had used during the McMartin trial. And that's how they ended up getting 115 charges of sexual assault due to all these leading questions. And before long, the strange thing is Mario Marola was suddenly being touted as a shoo-in for mayor for the next election in 1987. But it's so weird. You help the kids and you get to be mayor, everyone wins.
Yeah. What a way to make a name for yourself.
Yeah. And he responded to this sudden chance at fame by just making shit up. He would claim that one of the three men who had been arrested had been tested for an STD, and this was due to one of the children testing positive for gonorrhea. And he said this was a clear connection between the two. And he told this lie directly to the New York Times, which they printed. And it turns out of the three men who were indicted, not a single one had an STD, and not a single student had an STD.
What? Oh, God. I mean, I don't know if I should be livid or at least calmed by the fact that the New York Times has always been the New York Times in this regard.
Yeah, no, it's like we said, the internet's always been here, and the New York Times has always sucked in some degree. It's just like, maybe we should just give you guys more money for fact checking. I mean, I don't know what you're doing with my subscription money, but can I prefer that it goes there?
You had decent money in the 80s.
Yeah. Cable TV barely existed. You had your chance. But I could also see them being just like, I mean, Mario Marola said it. It's got to be true.
He's going to be
asshole gonna lie about nothing.
Yeah, why would he lie about something so outrageous?
And so Marola also hid the fact that the mother who had made the initial complaint actually owed about 6 weeks of tuition to Procca and had been fighting with them that whole time, trying to get out of paying it.
No, and that's not the first thing that you throw up as a defense?
Nope. Well, he hid it from the defense.
Ugh.
And the defense never found out. But far worse, he purposely hid exonerating evidence from all three defense teams.
Is that illegal?
Including all of the children who claimed that nothing happened.
Oh, what?
Yep. This is the sort of power that this guy had. He was so trusted within the county.
There's his photos everywhere.
Yeah, wait, no, that's Pedro. Pedro's photos.
My bad.
But yeah, so he hid all of that. He hid all of the contradictory interviews that the children had conducted. And he also hid evidence that parents had lied about witnessing activities at the daycare center when they had never been present there in the first place.
This is so unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and Marola also admitted to giving the various children candy for answering questions the way he wanted them answered. And, of course, all three men were found guilty with no evidence. It was all hearsay. No evidence. Oops, all hearsay.
I am livid.
On a somewhat happy note, all three of them would be released from prison and exonerated in 1993, and Mario Marola would die of a heart attack 3 years after the case, ensuring that he would never be mayor.
Well, or that justice would be brought upon him.
Yeah, that would be nice too. Yeah, there was a fourth dude who got caught up in this. He was I believe he was a Protestant pastor of some sort. I can't remember. I want to say he was a Lutheran because it was that sort of like quiet, conservative, feelings are down here sort of guy.
Yeah.
And his wife was just like, he doesn't even talk about sex. He wouldn't do this. And The 3 men who were thrown in jail for this served their time with him, and they all worked together to try to get themselves exonerated during this time. It was just a really sad story for all involved. But what do you do in the wake of all of this? I mean, you have a social services organization that's doing all of this good work. So I don't know. Do you help the kids? Do you help a fellow organization to try to clear their name who are also trying to do good within the community? Wait, what do you mean the city's gonna just give away the daycare to anyone? All right, fuck that. We're going after the daycare. We're applying to get a free daycare.
Wait, what happened?
Yeah.
What?
This is the weirdest fucking thing about this, because I don't know how the city had the legal right to do this. But the city of New York funds a number of daycares. They accredit them, but also give them funding. And so the private daycare center was in such a desert for this service that the city decided to essentially take ownership of the daycare and then tell everyone in the Bronx, apply and you will be able to run this daycare. And it's yours.
Was there any vetting?
Let's get to the vetting. So one of the things I had read, this was Pedro saying it, so grain of salt, that when it got closed down, there were parents who suddenly got thrown for an absolute loop. People either had to quit their jobs to be able to tend to their kids. There were some parents who were walking up to 20 city blocks just to be able to get their kids to the next available daycare that had an opening. It just caused absolute chaos for the community. So I totally get the idea of why New York City was just we have to put someone in here now. We have to put in an organization that we trust, that has run daycares before, that offers a head start, an early head start, and just basic childcare. We can find a group that does all of this. We need to get this center back up and running as soon as fucking possible. So I kind of get it in that regard. So they started taking bids, and the initial winner appeared to be a group called Progress, which stood for the Puerto Rican Organization for Growth, Education, and Rehabilitation of Social Services. And this seemed to really piss off Pedro, because that group name didn't sound at all like Comprehensive Community Development Corporation. And on September of 1984, Pedro took to the press, claiming, quote, Progress is an administrative body that would serve as a front for PRACA. He then claimed that the only reason his group was turned down was because they weren't deemed, quote, Hispanic enough to the city officials, and that they demanded that all PRACA daycare sites should have therapists on hand for children and parents. And the city would state the next week that that wasn't the reason that Pedro was shot down, but by then he had already begun a campaign within the community to force the city to change their minds about who got the PRACA daycare center. And by the end of October, they'd succeeded in just that, by kicking out Progress from being able to run this center at a much sooner time and making sure that Pedro's nonprofit got to run it. Well, and it gets a little worse, because just a week after Pedro had won the bid, the city retracted their offer and reopened the bidding process once again, resulting in a protest of about 1,000 people outside the closed daycare center. A lot of people viewed this as a direct insult to the community, but the city responded to this by saying, we didn't know this ahead of time, but the CCDC doesn't fit all of the qualifications that we were looking for. They run daycares, but they don't know how to do an early childhood development program, and they don't really do Head Start, so we have to reopen it.
Here's what's frustrating for me is because so often with clusterfucks like this is people walk away being like, oh, the inefficiency of government. It's no, there should not have been a bid process. There should be government run daycares, and enough so that there is never a desert issue to begin with.
100%, yes.
Because then it's subsidized by the government. Plus, if things fuck up, guess what? You always have voting power. You always have vote, and it's never a for-profit run institution. I just have to say this because this is so infuriating.
Well, then the question comes up of, why did you have Pedro Espada sign a contract if you were going to retract it the next week? If you knew these things were wrong.
To get him to shut up?
To which the city said, quote, it was more of a procedural contract than an actual commitment. Which I know that makes no sense, but having worked with people in the New York City government in my day job, that sounds completely par for the course. That this is our pre-contract, this is our getting ready for the contract. We just have to make sure that's in line, and then we're good.
I mean, listen, I love a good contract loophole of oh no, this isn't the contract. This is lowercase t, the contract.
Oh my God. And so it went back up for bid. But part of the other reason why it might have gotten retracted wasn't just filling out the paperwork wrong and not being 100% qualified. Turns out there were a couple of local politicians, mainly Councilman Rafael Colon and Ramon Velez, who suddenly became very interested in their own nonprofit organizations running the former daycare center, and suddenly got interested just a little bit after Pedro had won the bid. And so it's not so much that they were just we're doing the right thing, we fucked up. It's more just a couple politicians got really mad and we have to reopen this now.
Yeah, this is turning into such an Alamo moment. This is a fucking daycare.
It is ludicrous, the ripple effect that this has throughout so much of Pedro's life. It is ludicrous. If one person just paid 6 weeks of tuition, so much would have changed in our fucking lives.
Wow. Yeah.
A butterfly makes a false claim against a daycare. And what are you going to do? So in total, the daycare center would stay closed for about 5 months. This highly important daycare that the city needed to refill as quickly as possible, so they took it. It was closed for 5 months.
And after the past 14 months, I think everyone, like parent or childless, understands the importance of these fucking daycares.
100 fucking %.
Our economy is run thanks to daycares.
Mm-hmm. It's so fucking frustrating. And in the end, Pedro won. He got it.
Good for you, Pedro.
And not only did he end up getting the center, but he also got a promise of $1 million a year of funding from the city to run it.
Unbelievable.
Yep. So the group chose to create a contest to rename the center with a grand prize of $100. And technically...
Fuck out of here with that amount.
But $100 in 1980 money.
Okay, so it's probably...
1984 money.
All right, so it's like $450 now.
Yeah. And the winner, technically, was Pedro Espada Jr. This is because they didn't rename the center until 1989. When they renamed it the Dr. Richard L. Green Education Learning Center. I don't know anything about Richard Green, but apparently he was a highly respected person in the city and he had just passed.
Okay, this is... Wait, but it was called, what was the name of it before?
Praca Daycare Center.
Okay, at least it wasn't Pedro's Daycare Center.
Oh my God, that would have been amazing. That would have been a winner.
Here's
for
your
a while.
$100 goddamn dollars.
Yeah, it's so fucking frustrating. And weirdly enough, that's not the end of that story. It is the beginning of a whole other. So you remember how Councilman Rafael Colon tried to butt in and get control of the malign daycare center?
Yes.
Well, in 1985, he would face a pretty intense primary for his seat. And one of his competitors was a woman by the name of Sandra Love, who just so happened to be the community affairs director at the Soundview Health Center. And her campaign manager was none other than Pedro Espada Jr. Now, Sandra wouldn't win, but she only lost by 378 votes. And while this is all a very weird tangent to get into, I think it encapsulates Pedro Espada Jr. perfectly. He won, but winning wasn't enough. He didn't win immediately. He had to wait a few months. And how is winning worth it when people who don't like you can still come after you?
He's got that 1-2 punch, but he's holding back on the 2.
I know, you gotta fucking rope-a-dope it if you're going to get a maligned daycare center for free.
Jesus Christ.
Like, just fucking wait, dude. You have the community on your side. You have everything to win this, and you won. Fucking take the W and go home to your weird hospital with your shrine everywhere. It's so frustrating. So, of course, what is he gonna do? This is the Catfly podcast. He's gonna run for Congress.
Yes!
It's 1988, motherfuckers. And Robert Garcia was a 5-term congressman who enjoyed a career of incredibly easy election victories. But Robert had gotten caught up in a bit of a scandal, and this scandal is fucking ridiculous. You see, there's a company in the South Bronx called WebTech. They'd been founded in the early 1980s as a company that made baby carriages. However, they found a new niche that helped them become a multi-million-dollar business. The Department of Defense was offering no-bid contracts at the time to small businesses that were minority-owned. While the company had been founded by John Mariota, who was the descendant of Puerto Rican immigrants, the dude who actually owned WebTech was white as fuck. So they did the capitalist thing and just did a bunch of fraud to make it look like Mariota was still the primary owner. And he was the founder, and his story is kind of interesting because they made it sound like he was completely illiterate. He mostly just got by on his own mechanical knowledge of how to fix things and make things and just made a company out of complete scratch. And then this dude who helped boost the company became the primary shareholder of the whole thing and was the whole reason they discovered this Department of Defense loophole they could use.
That isn't the story of the manufacturing industry turning over into, I don't know, tech. I don't know what it is.
So before long, they got contracts to build all sorts of things. They got a contract to build pontoons for the Navy, engines for the Army. In total, they gained $250 million in contracts, and they became a beacon of the community, literally hiring anyone and everyone who applied. They, from what I read, they hired people who just came to the country. They hired people who'd been living in the community for years. They hired people who had just gotten out of prison. It was pretty much, you want to work here, come on the fuck in, and was huge for the community. And the Reagan administration actually started touting them as paragons of business. And John Mariota was named Small Businessman of the Year by the Small Business Administration. But, of course, people eventually figured out what WebTech was up to. Mainly because they kept giving bribes and stock options to politicians that covered up their secrets and guaranteed that they could get the no-bid contracts that they wanted.
Good Lord.
And one of those politicians was Congressman Robert Garcia.
Oh, there it is.
So, sensing an opening after the scandal was unveiled, Pedro took his chance at political office. And honestly, it actually went really well. He got endorsed by the New York Times, El Diario, Newsday, and the Amsterdam News. The thing, though, is he didn't really have any support from all the local Democrats, mainly because he pissed off all of them with this whole daycare thing. And Pedro would end up getting crushed by Garcia 61-27 in the Democratic primary. And Robert would easily win re-election, and then resign from office 2 years later after U.S. Attorney Rudy Giuliani hit him with a multitude of indictments stemming from the web text scandal.
Truly a different era.
Yeah. Initially, Garcia would be found guilty of extortion, but a higher court would reverse the decision. And Garcia spent the rest of his life focusing on his family's prison ministry and working as a consultant. So this is a race that really highlights Pedro's rebranding, if you will. He's the guy that the local party doesn't like. Here's 5 tricks that this local congressman doesn't want you to know.
Yeah, he's an upstart.
And so the very next year, he decides he's going to run for New York City Council. And on June 27th, Pedro would enter the race to face none other than Rafael Colon, the same man that he had just beat for the daycare. So fuck this guy. I am not going to stop until I defeat the man I defeated.
You're Atlanta, I'm Sherman. Let's do this.
So by the end of August, Espada and Colon had challenged each other's signatures to get on the ballot. And after a lower court reviewed their suits, both of them were kicked off the Democratic primary ballot.
Amazing.
Now, they would become embroiled in further court cases to get back on the ballot, and surprises of surprises, establishment-friendly Colon got back on, while Espada did not. And facing the choice of accepting defeat from his tangential nemesis or continuing to fight, Pedro chose to join some old friends of the Gadfly podcast, the New Alliance Party.
No, Pedro!
So it was a bit of a reminder for those of you who have heard the episode, or for those of you who haven't heard it yet. Highly recommend. It is a fucking trip that I didn't expect to take when we were talking about it. The New Alliance Party was founded by Fred Newman in New York City and was billed as a progressive party that specifically focused on the needs of people of color and LGBTQ plus communities. The thing, though, is the party was actually more of a front for Fred Newman's therapy cult, which then turned into a political cult. He, essentially what Fred Newman had done was he had created a form of therapy that it was called social therapy, and the general idea behind it is you're miserable because the world is miserable, and the only way to make the world better and your life better is to enter politics and to take part in political action. And it just so happened the political action you should be taking is the New Alliance Party.
Honestly, this sounds incredibly on brand for our boy Pedro.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, like both the good and the bad.
So he's joining the New Alliance Party at the height of its strength. They had just run their second race for president. It didn't go super well, but their candidate Lenora Fulani became the first woman of color to ever end up on the ballot in all 50 states. If I remember correctly, she's actually the first woman to end up on the ballot on all 50 states as a presidential nominee. So they're doing extremely well at this time, considering what was about to fall on their heads. But yeah, and so getting Pedro Espada for them was a humongous get. But for Espada, this was far more of a relationship of opportunity than a perfect match of ideologies. The New Alliance Party gave him a chance to restart his fight, and the New Alliance Party continued to get more credibility. And Pedro's campaign would even state on multiple occasions that even though he was their nominee, he did not share their more socialist-leaning platform.
Yeah.
And he would be asked in a future interview if he ever regretted aligning himself with the party, to which he said, quote, "They supported me during a critical phase in my early startup career in politics, in the city council. I never witnessed any of the so-called cult-like behaviors that were subscribed to them. But, we had a political engagement, a political partnership, as it were, for the early part of my career." Now, the funny thing that was brought up by this is no one asked him what he thought about the cult or why it was a cult. They were just like, "Hey, do you regret being in this party?" He's like, "They are not a cult."
Listen, I'm not saying I've seen cultish behavior. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. What did you say? A cult? Nope.
Nope, not a cult.
Not at all. I'm saying I didn't see actions that were very cult-like.
So Pedro would end up losing the general election, but he performed well enough that he would end up winning 2 very strong allies in the process. So in the general, Pedro got about 41% of the vote as the New Alliance nominee, which suddenly made him valuable to Fred Newman. So Pedro would never run as a New Alliance candidate ever again, but many people considered him to still be a party member throughout his entire career. Part of this would be because there were a number of folks who noticed the same people who were often out collecting signatures for New Alliance candidates, who were always the social therapy acolytes, were always out there for Pedro Espada. Every single election, these same fucking people from the New Alliance Party would be out there collecting signatures for a Democrat running for office.
Totally.
So one of the huge advantages that he got from this is he has a groundswell of supporters that he never has to fucking pay. And in exchange for this, he also got another $12,000 from the East Side Institute for Social Therapy, which is Fred Newman's cult therapy practice that still runs to this day. It is still in Manhattan, and I will say that until someone shuts it the fuck down.
Until someone finally listens to our podcast and realizes maybe it shouldn't be.
Yeah, maybe we should just, I don't know, solder the doors shut and just walk away. It's not a good place.
Everyone out, fumigated, and turned it into a much-needed daycare.
Oh my God, that's such a good plan. And so in exchange for this, for the free money and all the political donations, Pedro made a point to support social therapy as a legitimate psychological practice up until 2003.
Wow.
And apparently he and Fred Newman used to hang out at Newman's house on regular intervals, just discussing politics and hanging out.
Honestly, Pedro walked away with the better bargain in all of this.
Yeah. Another victory for Pedro is that despite losing to Rafael, within 6 years, Colon would plead guilty to stealing $383,000 directly from the city of New York.
What?
So what Rafael was doing was, you can hire your own staff when you're a city councilman. And so what he started doing is he started filling out paperwork for all of his family members. One was a cousin from Puerto Rico, another was a relative in Venezuela, and then all of his kids, filled them all out as his employees. They never showed up for work. They didn't even know that they were technically working for the city, and he just collected all of their paychecks and cashed them over a 7-year period.
That's not that's just straight up stealing. There's not it's barely a grift. It's just so full blown illegal.
Yeah, I don't know how he expected to get away with it. I think that's why it's barely a grift, is that a grift has a backup. A grift has a way of
panache.
Yeah, a grift you at least have to kind of hide a little.
Yes.
This was consistently one audit away from falling apart.
I mean, it's one person checking the paperwork and realizing everyone has the same fucking last name.
And I think he probably thought he could get away with it too, because nepotism was a humongous thing in New York politics.
Apparently.
Yeah, and so hiring your family was just kind of expected. So I don't think that raised too much of an eyebrow. But when people started realizing, your office seems a lot emptier than it should be based on payroll.
I'm sorry, a lot of these addresses end in PR.
It's fine. Just send it to my P.O. box. It's cool. I'll just send it in my office. I will take it to Puerto Rico and Venezuela. It'll be fine. They'll get it. Also, what color car do you think I'll look the best in? Because the answer is red. So he would at least get the last laugh on that. But the biggest victory would actually come from the local Bronx Democratic machine. You see, Pedro's strong performance running as a third-party candidate was a bit of a wake-up call for them. He wasn't so much now just like a thorn in their side, he was a legitimate threat. And they realized they had a choice. They could either just accept the fact that eventually this guy's going to win, or just spend the rest of their days fighting against him. So
can't beat him. In
1992, after the census redistricting of the entire state, the 32nd district opened up, and the party went directly to Pedro Espada and said, hey, you want in?
Wow.
And it's at this point, Pedro says yes, and they immediately get to work on clearing the fucking field.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Bronx Machine, one of the great things that they had were just a team of lawyers whose whole job was to get people kicked the fuck off the ballot. And so now you have this open seat. There are about 5 people trying to run and get in. The lawyers were able to kick off 2 people from the ballot and grudgingly had to let 2 other serious candidates on with Pedro. But that was not enough to get Pedro to lose. Probably in one of the funnier things. So the 2 candidates who were left were school board member Carmen Arroyo, who would eventually go on to have a career as a state assemblywoman, and attorney Lillian Fernandez. So Fernandez would end up getting the endorsement from Newsday magazine, which back in 1988 had endorsed Pedro Espada when he was running for Congress. They had a bit of a change of heart. Quote, Pedro Espada is a visionless opportunist.
Meow.
Yep, they're just like, you motherfucker, you told us you were against these shits, and now you're just gonna fucking join them and you're totally cool with it? Fuck you.
You're just gonna napalm the entire Democratic primary to get what you want?
To which Pedro said, new campaign, who dis? Yeah, just like in the last election. Yeah, you can get all the fucking newspaper endorsements you want. It doesn't mean a fucking thing when you have the lawyers, the money, and the local party behind you pushing your name fucking everywhere.
Oh.
And so Pedro would end up going to win the primary and absolutely crush his Republican competitor in the general election. Because it's the Bronx. What are you doing running as a Republican? Fucking move to Westchester with that bullshit.
Yeah, just go north 25 miles.
There's a borough for you. It's called Staten Island. Fucking try it out, man. And so after winning, Pedro made a number of promises. He promised he would heal divisions between people in the party, that he would create more jobs within the Bronx and encourage business development within the community. So what did he end up doing as state senator? And the answer is not a lot. I can't find any legislation that he entered. He seemed to have absolutely no interest whatsoever in state politics. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. We should actually talk about the very first thing he did, the first month after getting put into office. So in various state senates, there are caucuses for various groups of ideologies and things like that. And in the New York Senate, there was the Black and Puerto Rican Legislative Caucus. Now, predominantly, this was usually run by African-American members of the state Senate, predominantly because there were more African-American senators than there were Puerto Rican senators. So they constantly won the elections. And Pedro viewed this as a chance to kind of sneak in to try to steal some power. So Pedro created the Coalition of Puerto Rican Latino Elected Officials, which included the senators and assemblymen. And eventually, he wanted to kind of bring in city councilman as well. But the stated goal of the group was to increase advocacy of the community within state politics. But not so much later, the group came out against incumbent mayor of New York City, David Dinkins, most notably the first black mayor of New York City. And it became a lot more clear that the goal was to actually produce more power for Pedro because, surprise, surprise, he's the guy running the group. And he wants a say as to who's going to be the next mayor.
Pedro.
What, you want me to vote on shit? Fuck you. I had shit to do at home.
It's not like if you keep fighting a bigger person, suddenly you'll just be the heavyweight champion.
No, look, I was told to stay in school, so I had to teach my own boxing lessons. And they are to keep trying to fight the guy bigger than you. So aside from this, like I said, he really didn't seem to have any interest at all in statewide politics and mainly kept his opinions and issues very local. On the more positive side of things, he did have a yearly fundraiser for Thanksgiving to try to get folks meals for the holiday. In the more middle ground, his big fight that he had in 1993 was to keep the New York Yankees in the Bronx. Apparently, George Steinbrenner, who was the owner of the Yankees, was threatening to move the team to the Meadowlands in New Jersey, which is just, like, if you want someone to set fire to your house, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the New York Jets, like the football team, does play in the.
Yep, the Jets and the Giants both play there, yeah.
Ugh,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, and, having the Yankees actually in the city is a point of pride. I mean, yes. Yankee Stadium in the Bronx was fucking beautiful. It was a great stadium. And it turns out, as a lot of people theorized, he was only doing this to try to bilk more money out of the city, just being like, oh, I need renovation money. Otherwise, I'm moving to Jersey. What are you going to do?
Oh, because every fucking owner did that. Yes.
100%. So Pedro would, he mainly had a bunch of community meetings where people could come by and yell about how the Yankees should stay in the city.
Love it.
From what I read, they were fairly poorly attended, but often reported by the newspapers.
Nice.
And so, yeah, of course, the Yankees stayed in the Bronx until recently. I don't know where they are now.
The Bronx?
Oh, yeah, New Yankee Stadium is in the Bronx still. Probably one of the weirder things he did. In 1993, he called on the governor of New York, Mario Cuomo, to send the National Guard to stop drug dealers in the Millbrook housing project in his neighborhood. Now, this wasn't an original idea of his. He was having a town hall, and someone from the Bronx was just like, you should call the National Guard in there to fucking take out all these drug dealers. And,
it's anarchy!
Yeah, and to which Espada was like, all right, I'll bring it up to the governor. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm not paying for the guard. Let's do this.
He had also brought up the, I don't know if this is true or not, but he had made the claim that drug dealing had become so bad in this part of the Bronx that dealers were renting out the best street corners for $1,000 a day. And I don't think that's how it works, but I don't know. I'm not a part of that world.
I mean, have I watched The Wire? Yes. I still don't think that's how it works.
Yeah, I just always assume that it's like, this is my to use a salesperson term, this is my district. This is my territory. I get to run my territory. I don't know if it's going to be worth it to rent it out to other people because you'd have to rent it out at a rate higher than what you would get, I assume. Or you're getting a cut maybe, but you're already getting rent money. So it doesn't make sense.
It's like the kids on the corner aren't franchise owners. Are you renting to other gangs?
Yeah, like where do you send the check? No, you don't send the checks in.
This has been Drug Talk.
Look, I would like to negotiate my rent for the corner. Can you believe they're going to move it up by 10%? That's such bullshit. And fucking corner inflation.
I swear, if this comes out of my taxes, I'm going to be livid.
This corner does have in-unit washer dryer though, so you take what you can get.
The neighborhood's a little bit iffy.
I find it funny that like $1,000 a day to rent something in New York still sounds kind of like a deal, especially after looking at there's like some Twitter thing that Quinta Brunson had retweeted where it was an apartment, I want to say it was in Brooklyn, that was $12,000 a month, that was a studio that had in the kitchen was the shower, and the shower was right next to the oven. And right across from the fridge. And a part of me is like, I kind of like that, but it's never going to work.
Well, you never use your oven as a native New Yorker. You just store your shoes and your sweaters in there because you always get takeout. That's a given.
What, you don't like the idea of like you're running late for work, so you got to like cook some eggs while you're washing your butt?
All of this just sounds like a depressed person's fever dream.
Yeah, I mean, whoever's renovating this apartment was like, all right, we knocked down the walls from when this place was built in 1823. These used to be very spacious rooms. All right, What can I do for this studio? What do you mean the shower has to go next to the fucking Murphy bed? This isn't going to work.
You know what? It sounds like they took a tenement apartment that was already small.
Oh, God, yeah.
Or like, an Irish family of 12.
Yeah.
And I see these sometimes where it's like, there truly is a bathtub in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You cut that in half. It's like, well, we have the water line. We'll put it next to the oven, which we had to move over because we cut this already small apartment into quarters.
Jesus, where are the ghosts going to stay?
It's like $2,600 a month, and it's a steal.
Man.
45-minute walk to the J line, which does not run on the weekends.
Nope. God damn it. Oh my God. This is some good New York talk. This will be,
Yeah.
this will be great for the majority of our listeners who do not live in New York City. Oh my God. Yeah. So he made that claim to the governor, and Mario Cuomo, in a very diplomatic quote, said, "I'll consider it." So part of what I read behind this idea is apparently this was a tactic that had been used in Puerto Rico a couple of times to fairly high success. But also it's not, I mean, it's something Brazil does a lot, or at least did a lot into the run up to the Olympics, and the various favelas sending in the military to try to knock stuff out there. Wasn't a long-term solution.
No, it's barely a short-term solution.
Oh yeah. But essentially it seems like he actually used that as a negotiating tactic, because what they really wanted was to create a neighborhood-based alliance, which at the time was an idea of creating a hyper-local group that would focus on a number of blocks or a community that would be given state funds to try to fund community projects and social services that would help stem the tide of drug use. So it was a pretty decent idea, and that's eventually what they would end up getting. The Millbrook Neighborhood-Based Alliance would be created, and they would receive $400,000 in funds in aiding the improvement of the neighborhood. Which, I mean, I gotta give Pedro credit on that. You came in with a crazy fucking bid, and you ended up getting what you wanted.
Yeah, it's like some people play chess, some people just sneak uppercut you. As long as the tax money is distributed.
Yeah, look, it's boxing. You just gotta. So Pedro would end up winning re-election very easily in 1994. But this would also mark a new tradition for Pedro, and that would be just never disclosing his campaign finance reports.
Pedro.
So in 1994, this was something from the article that I read, there were a lot of politicians who forgot to do this, including future governor of New York, David Paterson. So this wasn't exactly weird, but I believe it was Neil Coleman had brought it up that he knew this was something that Pedro had been doing, because if you don't submit your campaign finances, then there's nothing to catch you doing wrong. And it made more sense for him to just pay the fines than submit the reports.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
That means those fines are not high enough.
Yeah, the downside is that does get the FBI very curious.
Yeah, that's a little ping in the Microsoft Outlook for them.
Oh my God, yeah, you get an SMS report on that, like, oh no, my job's easy today.
Yeah, my Google feed just lit up.
Oh man, I get to take a long lunch. This is great. I wonder if there's any restaurants near Quantico I could go to.
Oh my God, can you imagine? Like a fucking food truck at Quantico.
Oh my God, I run the Sbarros at Quantico.
Hey, it's Tuesday. Are we getting falafel?
Oh my God. Love it. Fucking love it. So once again, he would have another term of barely making much news for policy and just focusing more on local shit that he had barely any power over. And really, he could have made a really long career of just doing this, of never introducing legislation, just being a spokesman for the Bronx and supplying local news with sound bites whenever they needed to fill up a final paragraph, which is probably one of the most frustrating things looking up old articles about this guy, is so many came up with him just being like, I think it's a good idea, said Senator Espada, end of article. Yeah, I mean, you had nothing to do with any of this, you fuck. Why? Why are you wasting my time?
I have to go to the second page of the Google search. Who does that?
But two big things would end up marking Pedro's fall from grace. And of course, they both happened at the same time. So in 1996, he's running for re-election. And the first blow would come in July, right in the middle of the campaign. It would come courtesy of the New York Observer, which sadly no longer exists. So despite Pedro's vocal love of the Bronx, he had a bit of a history of not exactly living there. So in 1992, he had attempted to claim his mother-in-law's home as his primary address. And when pressed further about that, he claimed that her fold-out couch was the main place that he slept. And weirdly enough, they accepted this as an answer. And the issue with this is, if you are running for political office in New York, you have to be a resident of the district or city that you are running by election day. This is something that came up with Andrew Yang, I believe.
Yes, he was living in a hotel.
Exactly, yeah, but technically it's his residence. This happened with Rocky De La Fuente when he was running for governor. Like, he had to get a place by election day, and he ended up finding, I want to say, a brownstone somewhere that eventually let him in.
Because real estate is the true religion in New York.
Exactly. And so as long as he had a residence that he could claim in the area, technically no one was really going to dig that deep into it. But you know what? The New York Observer has some free time, so they decided to look into other properties that Pedro owned. And they eventually ended up finding a palatial home in Westchester County, which for those of you who aren't familiar, Westchester is just north of the Bronx, and it is one of the wealthiest counties in the entire country. It is where wealth lives and flourishes. All of the towns are mostly difficult to pronounce. Hillary Clinton lives there. It
is WASP AF.
It is the oldest of money lives in Westchester County. And so they're like, okay, he's owned a house here, and it appears as though he's owned it since 1991. But you know what? A lot of politicians have multiple homes. So why don't we just go up there and see how often he actually goes to that home? So they sent a reporter up to Westchester, about 16 miles outside of the Bronx, and just kind of sat there for a while. And what they ended up finding out was that he was living full-time at the end of a cul-de-sac in Mamaroneck. And sure enough, he's there every single day. Quote, Mr. Espada could be found lounging by the pool, dressed dressed in a white tank top and baby blue shorts and a matching baseball cap. And when the reporter knocked down the door, they were treated to Pedro's wife Connie leaving the place immediately in a car that just so happened to be paid for and owned by the Soundview Health Center. And the thing, though, is this wouldn't be the thing that actually ruined his political career. What actually did it was inter-party drama.
Oh, there it is.
So you see, now that the local machine had accepted Espada, that wasn't enough for him, because nothing's ever enough for this man. And so he kind of viewed that at any point, someone who might not like him might end up being in charge of the party and kick him aside at any time. So in 1994, when the party went to elect a new leader, two factions formed, one for Congressman Jose Serrano and another for State Assemblyman Roberto Ramirez. And since Congressman beats Assemblyman, Pedro aligned with Serrano. In the end, Ramirez would end up winning. And instead of letting bygones be bygones, Pedro continued to fight him. But as the 1996 election came closer, Rodriguez was on a mission to unite the party entirely before the election. So he offered Pedro a deal. If he would help Pedro's son, Pedro G. Espada, win a special election for the state assembly, then Pedro would endorse Larry Seabrook for state senate, who happened to be one of the local Democrats that he was still publicly fighting. An agreement was made, and Pedro III and Seabrook would both go on to win their respective campaigns. And for a tiny bit, peace seemed formed. But not one to turn down an opportunity to get more, Pedro approached Roberto with another deal. Well, actually, it's more of an ultimatum, to be accurate.
Oh.
You see, at some point, Pedro would want to move on to a higher office. And when he did, he wanted the party to guarantee that they would support his choice for his successor. And this really isn't something that's super uncommon, but typically you don't say, hey, this is who I'm picking, support them. There's usually a little more beyond that. But who Pedro wanted was his chief of staff, Norma Ortiz. And not only that, but he wanted the Democrat who came the closest to defeating his son in the special election, a real horse's ass by the name of Ruben Diaz, to be shunned from the party and given no further support in any future elections. And look, Ruben Diaz is a borderline alt-right Republican type with a homophobic streak that rivals the Falwells, but this is also a big fucking ask. And in the end, sensing that if he gets this, he might ask for even more next time, Rodriguez turned down both of his requests. And with that, Pedro Espada Jr. began a public fight with the party that only 4 years ago had led him into their accepted ranks. And with that, sensing Espada being more trouble in the party than in the fringes, the party removed their support for his 1996 re-election campaign. Roberto and the party would recruit City Councilman David Rosado to run against Pedro. But once again, the party had another thing that Espada didn't have, a team of ruthless fucking lawyers. They immediately began diving into Pedro's signatures, and hey, wouldn't you know it, he doesn't have enough to be on the ballot. Kick him off.
Oh my God.
So in a matter of months, he goes from getting a sweetheart deal and the support of the party grudgingly for another election to getting forced off the Democrat primary ballot and essentially out of the election.
This man is like a walking Aesop's fable. He is what you tell little children to stop like grabbing for so much shit. Like take only what you need.
But Pedro did do pretty good as a New Alliance nominee. Maybe he could get on the ballot with another party. He might actually have a chance. And lucky for him, he did end up winning the nomination for the Liberal Party of New York. Now, the weird thing with New York politics is that there are so many fucking third parties in New York politics. It is a weird thing. They co-endorse candidates all the time. Every once in a while, they'll run their own independent candidate, but that's typically just a fluke of the primary. And that's exactly what happened this time, is somehow Pedro ended up winning the Liberal Party's nomination in their primary when David Rosado did not. And the Liberal Party of New York, they were founded in 1944. They had a pretty solid run, but by around 1980, they had lost most of their respectability and ability to win anything. It was more so just like, oh, I got their endorsement. That's nice. That's one last battle I have to fight.
All right.
And no one, to my knowledge, has ever won just as a Liberal Party nominee in the state of New York, ever. And continuing the tradition, Pedro would fall and lose handily, 78-21, losing to David Rosado.
Good Lord.
And for most folks, that'd probably be the end of their political story, but not for Pedro Espada Jr. Because as he learned, when someone hurts you, you get back up and you hurt them back, no matter how long it takes to get back up, and no matter what you have to do to get there. And it's here we begin the revenge tale of State Senator Pedro Espada Jr. against the Democratic Party of New York, where we will follow up the beginning of this revenge next time on
Oh my goodness!
Yep. This story's gonna get weirder. It's gonna get so fucking weird.
Girl, are you an arsonist? Because you love burning bridges.
Oh my God. I am shocked that the Brooklyn Bridge is even still standing if Pedro got near it. This is a man who does not know how to take a win. I don't even think he would feel calm if he was Emperor of Earth. He would try to figure out some way that Mars was going to fuck him, or he'd be like, we have to send rockets at all the asteroids. They're going to fuck this up for me.
Right. And then a rocket would go off and destroy Earth.
Why is everyone supporting the rocket? Fuck that rocket. Yeah, what do you think of Pedro so far? Like, if he was one of our Chicago's own, how would you be feeling about that?
He would be right at home, unfortunately. Be some like Lock Club Chicago article I read about,
Oh my
one of the
God.
like southwestern or Bridgeporty side area codes.
Yeah, he's like a savvier Proco Joe Moreno. Like, he's actually capable of trying to seize power. He's just not honed in at it right now.
He's just so angry.
Yeah, he's really good at short-term power. He just hasn't been able to figure out that long-term strategy yet.
No.
But will he?
I don't know.
I mean, I guess we'll find out next time on Gadfly. Do. I said it twice. Do.
Gadfly is a production of Added Serotonin. Our episodes are edited by Brianna Valentine of Rem Alternus Productions. Our theme song is Sophomore Makeout by Silent Partner, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at GadflyPod.
Ready to level up your cosplay game? Check out the Geek Forge on Etsy. With a variety of props to give your photos that extra spark, you'll find just what you need. Hold magical fire in the palm of your hand, or take a potion to restore your mana. With a large variety of colors, you can choose your own magical flavor for your cosplay. Bring drama to your photo shoots with these vibrant props and more, all available at the Geek Forge. Are you ready to level up your cosplay?